Hey guys! So I am here with Connor Anderson,
Hi.
and he is a 19-year-old passionate vegan activist, probably one of like the best vegan
I'll stop
activists.
it.
So I'm just going to ask him a couple of questions, and let's just get going. So when did you like first get into activism, and like what was it that inspired you to do it?
July the 15th, 2016. I always remember the exact date for some reason. First thing I ever did was Essex Pig Save. I was first inspired to become an activist when I watched like Gary Yourofsky's speech, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first watched this speech, I'd already decided by then that I was going to be vegan as soon as possible. But it was that speech in particular that inspired me to become an activist. I didn't really know where to start. I started doing a bit of research into the groups that are out there, like the Save movement, like the Earthlings Experience, those kind of things, but I didn't know there was any here in the UK. Now, I just happened to, one day I was searching the internet, and I found Essex Pig Save. At this point, there were only two Save groups in the UK. There was Manchester Pig Save and Essex Pig Save.
Yeah.
So, and it was only a few days later that they had their second vigil. So I decided to go along to that. I was very nervous, of course. I didn't really know what to expect.
Yeah.
But I went along anyway, obviously without knowing a single person.
Oh.
I just felt like I fit in straight away. And,
That's so
and
nice.
the ironic thing is that we didn't actually get to bear witness that day. So I'll talk a bit about what the Save movement's all about. But yeah, basically there were no trucks, or there were trucks, but they went in so quickly we didn't get the chance to stop them and bear witness.
Yeah.
So even though the first form of activism I ever did, we didn't actually get the chance to do what we were there for. Just being around all these other vegans, speaking to them, hearing all their stories, that really inspired me to keep going. So then the week after that, I went to the Earthlings Experience in Southend, which was run by the same people who organised Essex Pig Save. And it was just...
From there,
yeah.
it all took off.
Yeah, it just all took off. And when I first went to Essex Pig Save, I never knew that I was going to be doing activism all the time.
Yeah.
Even when I decided that I was going to become an activist, I didn't know I'd be doing it all the time. I just thought maybe, go to the odd thing here and there if it's fairly local. But the thing is, once you start, you can't stop.
Yeah,
because
it's
you
very
really get the
addictive.
impression that you're making such a difference.
For sure.
Even just being there, you're having an impact on the business, for example. So I just, just taking it from there, done as much as I can. Obviously, I always feel like I can improve. I think all activists feel like that sometimes. We always feel like there's more that we can be doing.
Absolutely.
But the important thing is we're all out there doing what we can.
Just getting out there and doing as much as
Yeah.
possible. And I think it's really empowering as well, like being around like-minded individuals. I think that really helps. But how did you find like Gary Yourofsky's speech?
Oh, it was absolutely brilliant. You see, like I said, I already at this point decided that I was gonna go vegan. So I already understood the reasons why people do it. But I just love the way that he came across. He was so passionate about it. He was so unapologetic about it.
Yeah.
You could tell that, like, it was basically his whole life was devoted to it. And that really spoke to me because I've always been inspired by activists like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Nelson Mandela. And I always thought that those kind of heroes were like, people from the past.
Yeah.
So when I saw that there were those
Modern
kind of
day.
people, still out there fighting against injustice, I found that really inspiring.
Absolutely.
And that's what got me to, to keep going.
That's
That's what made me
amazing.
keep going.
Okay.
And the questions have just disappeared.
Yes,
Or
they
just,
have. Thank you, Connor, about that.
That's all right.
Oh my goodness me.
I might need to keep doing this, by the way. You
That's
might want to
okay.
just like keep your finger on it or something, just to stop
No
it.
worries.
Got a bit
Sorry,
off track
I have
here.
have
Sorry.
a bit of a list of questions, just to sort of keep this on track. So how long was it before you started expanding into other branches of activism? Because I know you don't just do saves now; you do everything. How did that happen?
Well, like I said, it was just a week after Essex Pig Save where I got into the Earthlings Experience. It's difficult to say really because in the nearly 2 years that I've been doing activism, I've just been doing all different kinds of things. I've just be a little bit careful. So, sorry, gone off track again. But
Sorry.
it just, whenever I see that something's happening, if it's reasonable distance, I'll go to it, whether it be a save, whether it be an Earthlings experience. And even more recently, I've started doing the Cube of Truth, which is a similar kind of thing.
Amazing.
I'll go into that a bit more later. But it's pretty much like, from when I started, I just decided if I see something, I'll go to it, regardless of if it's something I've done before, if it's, as long as I'm out there trying to do what I can. I think all activism is valid.
Of course.
Definitely, all activism is effective in its
Yeah.
own way. So that's the key thing.
I mean, it's amazing, and it's such a brave and courageous thing to do. How do you find the confidence to get out there and keep doing these things and to speak to strangers about what you're doing and things?
I didn't start that way. When I first started going to events, I didn't really speak to many members of the public, especially when doing things like Earthlings, which basically the idea, for those of you that aren't aware, the idea behind the Earthlings experience is we would have some people in masks showing footage from inside slaughterhouses, inside factory farms, and then we would have other people on outreach, which is communicating with the public. So when someone stops and watches the footage, the outreachers will go and speak to them, explain to them what's happening, answering any questions they might have. I didn't start with this at first. I started just showing footage, but over time it was just a case of watching other activists and learning from them, like listening to their conversations. Which, when you're behind the masks, you obviously you have the opportunity to listen to a lot of the conversations that are going on. So then one day I decided, just to give it a go. I wasn't too confident in my own outreach ability by this point, but it did go surprisingly well. So I thought, you know what, I actually quite like this.
Yeah.
And I actually think this is quite effective.
Oh.
So gradually, I know I'm not the perfect outreach. Is there such a thing, really? Let's be honest.
Not really.
But, I have my own way of doing it. I'm sure all activists will say the same thing.
Of course.
Yeah, it's just a case of learning from your experiences, learning from others. You will have the odd conversation that doesn't go particularly well. Don't let it get you down. There are plenty of people out there who are going to listen, plenty more opportunities. So it's just, taking confidence from that and allowing yourself to develop as a person, as an activist.
Would you say your confidence has improved over time?
Oh, absolutely, definitely.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, because like I said, when I first started, I wasn't really speaking to members of the public much. It wasn't really something I'd ever done before.
Yeah.
Even say for example in school, I was always seen as quite a shy person.
Oh,
It's kind of had a huge impact on me as a person, not just in an activist sense, but I just feel so much more confident in my everyday life
That's
now.
so
it's,
good.
it's had that impact on me as well. Obviously, that's not the reason why I'm doing it. Not by any
but
means.
it's a positive thing that's come out of it.
Oh,
I
absolutely,
suppose.
yeah.
So, and how on earth do you find all the time to do this? Because you're in college, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I'm only in college a few days a week though, so I do have plenty of time for it. I often neglect sleep. Let's put it that way. Sometimes I'll find myself leaving the house at 1:30 in the morning to go to a vigil on the other side of Kent, for example. That was one particular example, actually. So that's absolutely ridiculous. But let's not get into that.
Yeah.
It is hard. There are things that I often can't go to, which does get frustrating. And often there will be multiple things happening on the same day, which is a nice problem to have, I suppose.
Yeah.
But also, I just want to.
It's frustrating, isn't it?
You just want to do everything you can.
Conquer the world.
Well, yeah.
I think you're doing pretty much as one person can do. So.
Thank you. I like to think so, but like I said, I also recognise there's so much more that I could be doing. Any activist will say that whilst there are still animals out there being exploited and killed, there is so much more that we can all be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about all the different things that you organise, because obviously you've taken over Hertfordshire Chicken Save now with Claire, and obviously you do lots of Cube of Truth, you do Earthlings experience, you do protests. Tell me about all the different sort of things you do.
Okay, so I'll talk about Hertfordshire Chicken Save first, just for anyone who's not aware of what the Save movement is.
Yes.
The idea is to go to slaughterhouses, and when the trucks are coming in with the animals, we will try to stop the trucks for just a couple of minutes and get as much footage of the animals as we can. Maybe give them a bit of comfort, give them a bit of love that they probably would never have experienced during their short, horrible lifetimes. The footage will go online and hopefully get shared far and wide. And in fact, I personally know a lot of people who have gone vegan because of saved footage.
Me too.
Yeah, so it's so that's the idea behind it. Every save group's different, all slightly different in how they run things.
Yeah, of
some are
course.
more successful than others in terms of like having an agreement with the slaughterhouse or with the police, but generally it's such a good movement. It's a massive global movement.
Yeah,
There's
it's
more and more
amazing.
groups popping up all the time.
Yeah.
And
so
thank you for giving me the opportunity to organise and Hampshire Chicken Save.
no, not at all. I handed it over to the right person.
Thank you very much. If it wasn't for Claire, I'd be hopeless. So let's give her the credit
Bless her.
she deserves as well. Romford, that was actually the first event I ever hosted. Was the Earthlings Experience in Romford.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many of you guys know Romford. It's not got a particularly good reputation. If you follow me online, you'll know I moan about it a lot. So I decided to set up an Earthlings Experience there one day under a group called Havering Vegan Action, which I have online. I didn't expect many people to turn up. I didn't expect it to go very well. I didn't expect us to still be alive by the end of it. but well, clearly I am, so
Thank goodness.
it was successful in that sense.
Yeah.
A lot of people came to the first one. I think from memory it was around 10, 11, 12 people.
That's so good.
Yeah, it was really good. And we started off doing them once every 2 or 3 weeks. But now gradually as I've got more and more people, like some locals, some people do travel to come to them as well. As we've got more and more people coming along, I've decided to up it to once a week. So it's every Friday
Wow.
night from 7 to 9 p.m. It's outside the McDonald's on South Street. So if anyone
Check it out.
if anyone's interested, just look up the page Havering Vegan Action on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the event
And
details
go,
are on
go,
there.
go.
Well, mostly Facebook. I don't really run the Twitter and Instagram accounts as well as I should. But, so that's Havering Vegan Action. Also, since then, we now have a Cube of Truth in Romford. So the Cube of Truth is a similar idea to the Earthlings Experience in terms of showing footage to people and having outreaches speaking to the public, but it's a lot more structured. So the people showing footage will stand in a cube formation. There's a particular emphasis on it looking aesthetic. I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
So like everyone, like wearing black clothing is I wouldn't say it's kind of essential, but I'm a little bit lenient about it. So if someone turns up in a like non-black clothing, I'm not going to tell them to leave.
No.
But they need to try and stand as robotic as possible, which again is easier said than done,
Yeah,
especially
for
since they're like
sure.
3-hour events. But personally, I think that's my favourite form of activism, because when I first heard about it, I was a bit sceptical of how structured it was. But over time, when I started going to cubes, I started to realise that it's all there for a reason. And it really is effective, because we take a tally of how many people we think are genuinely going to take veganism seriously based on the conversations we've had, based on whether they watch the footage, the
So
kind of
good.
questions they're asking. And it's difficult to say an average, because obviously different cubes is different areas,
Produce different results, yeah.
foot traffic, if you know what I mean. We've done 3 events in Romford. From memory, I think our first event we managed 70. Hang on, let me think about this. Yeah, 72 people was our. No, hang on. Sorry, I'm forgetting this now. My memory's terrible. I think it was 58 for our first one, 92 for our second, and then our
Wow.
third one last week was 78. So
That's
it's gone pretty well.
incredible.
And since then, I've also become a co-organiser for Basildon and Southend, because my friend Nathan, who co-organises Romford with me, he also does Basildon and Southend, so I'm now helping him out with those ones as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in the process of setting up another one in Brentwood, which is not that far from Romford. It's just outside London, and a lot of the workers from one of the local slaughterhouses live there, so that would be very interesting. So that would be the 4th one that me and Nathan co-host, and the 5th one in Essex, because there's also one in Chelmsford as well. So those are the cubes that we organise. Another thing I host is a weekly event at Canada Goose every Wednesday evening from 5 to 8 p.m. It's an Earthlings style event, so people will wear coyote masks.
Amazing.
There's my friend Henry who hosts it with me. He's a brilliant artist. He's done all sorts of like placards. He's got these coyote masks in, which are absolutely brilliant. And I think it's a really effective event, because a lot of the Canada Goose protests are based around repetitive chanting, which obviously has its place, but I think it's good to mix up the forms of activism a little bit. So we've started doing this once a week. I think we've been doing it for a couple of months now. In fact, the first one we did was in the middle of a snow blizzard, which wasn't particularly fun, but
It's amazing.
yeah,
though.
still went pretty well, I think.
The fact that you guys are out there doing that in any weather conditions, like,
well,
so
the abuse doesn't stop just because the weather changes, so we can't stop either.
so true, and that's such a good way to think of things. You know, like you said, it doesn't matter how much it's snowing or raining, animals are still dying.
Yeah,
so.
definitely.
so
So
far.
those are the regular events that I either host or co-host. Occasionally I'll set up like a one-off event somewhere else, like around a year ago, the two of us actually did a Earthlings experience here in Hartford.
We did.
Which it went fairly well. I mean, it wasn't particularly busy that day because it wasn't that far from Easter,
Yeah.
so it probably could have gone better with better planning.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something we'll probably do again in the future,
Exactly,
for sure.
for sure.
So those are those are like the
All the
different
different
things that
forms,
are
yeah.
that are happening at the moment. I've got more plans for the future, but I'm
Stay
not going to
tuned.
say them just in case I don't manage to get round to them
Oh.
because obviously as we've already talked about, finding the time for it all is
Mm-hmm.
very difficult.
No, but stay tuned, guys.
Hmm.
So you've mentioned that you think that Cube of Truth probably is like the most effective form of activism and like reaches sort of the most people. Have you had any like very specific like experiences that stand out to you of like something really positive that's happened with someone?
Well, any conversation where I speak to somebody and I genuinely believe that they're going to go away and take veganism seriously, I see that as a really positive experience. But just to sort of clarify something I said, whilst personally I think the Cube of Truth is the best form of activism on a personal level because I feel like with speaking to the public and communicating with them, personally I feel like I have a lot of success with that.
Yeah.
Everyone has their different strengths and weaknesses, so I
course.
don't think there's one best form of activism. It's about recognising your strengths, utilising them. So for example, another form of activism might be to create videos and post them online, especially people who have got a very good YouTube following and people who know what they're doing technologically. Now, if you've ever seen any of my YouTube videos, you'll see that I've got the editing skills of a 5-year-old. So,
Not true.
so I kind of leave that side of things to people who know what they're doing. I'm not one of them. So I just stick to what I think is best, and other people do their own thing. Like I said earlier, all forms of activism are valid. We're trying to convert, or I don't like to use the word convert, but for want of a better word, we're trying to change all different kinds of people, so we need to utilise all different kinds of activism. That's vital. As long as we're out there doing something, that's what really matters.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with everything that you're doing, because it sounds like you have insane amounts of things to have to do on top of getting hardly any sleep, college, etc., do you ever feel like you just need to take a break from it all? Do you ever just think, I can't do this, like for your own personal mental
Yeah, there have been a couple of times where I've had to take like a week out or something, just just for my own sake, because it is a lot of pressure, obviously. Being out there, especially like vigils, for example, getting up really early to go and see thousands of animals on their way to die, and knowing there's not really that much more, nothing we can do to stop it. I mean, I know
It's traumatic.
it is helpful in the long run because we're getting the message out there. But for the animals that are actually being brought in at that moment, it is very tough.
Yeah.
There's nothing really we can do to stop that. So it can take its toll over time. But even taking a break, I don't even like doing that, to be honest, because it feels like when I'm at home just doing nothing, I feel like I could be out there doing something productive. So it's a bit of a lose-lose situation. When I'm out doing stuff, obviously it really does take its toll. When I'm not doing stuff, I feel like I should be.
Oh,
But
gosh.
it is really important for us as activists to take care of ourselves, because
Take care of the mental health.
yeah, because even for the sake of the movement, we need to be as effective as we possibly
Exactly,
can.
a fallen activist can't help
Yeah,
animals,
yeah,
so.
definitely. I mean, so for any activists watching this, take time out if you feel like you need to. There's no shame in that at all. I know I said I don't like taking time out, but I do recognise the importance of it.
Yeah, of course.
Otherwise, if you don't, eventually you're just going to burn out completely, and you'll
Yes, burn
and then that's really not going to help the animals at all. And it's not going to help yourself, of course. So
Yeah.
just take breaks when you need to. As long as you're out there doing what you can, that's all. That's the most important thing. There are lots of vegans who don't
Do
do
anything
activism
at
at
all,
all,
yeah.
which I find really frustrating. But we've got to make up for it by doing what we can, but obviously
Exactly.
keeping our own mental well-being in mind as well.
Yeah, of course. Even if it's just leafleting, stickering in supermarkets,
Yeah, it's
anything.
about to go off, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, hang on.
Sorry.
So I'm a bit of a technophobe, so I don't really know what I'm doing.
No, it's fine. So on that note, has anything ever sort of affected you in like a serious way? Like, has anything caused like quite bad trauma? Because you must have seen some horrific things. In your
Yeah,
time.
I mean, there hasn't been a particular incident, like one particular thing that's led to that. Mm-hmm. As I said, there have been times where I've needed to take a bit of time out because of a build-up of little things here and there.
Yeah.
From memory, I don't think there's one particular thing that's really affected me to the point where I've had to take a break due to stress or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Could well happen in the future. Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully not. But
Sounds like you know what's best for you and you know
yeah,
what works
for sure.
for you. So.
I mean, even when, like, say, if I've been to a vigil all day, I'll go home and I'll make sure I take some time out for myself. So I'll just relax in front of the TV, or I'll put some relaxing music on, that kind of thing.
Good. That's so effective, I think. Just to wind down and
Absolutely.
So on top of everything else, obviously you're very much you do as much as you can online as well as offline, and you're a big sort of advocate for like things like helping people to sign petitions and blah 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 blah. And I've seen you do a lot for particularly for fur activism, especially because we've just had winter, so fur is out in force. And I understand that you managed to get 2 separate big markets in London to stop selling fur. Could you tell me about these instances, please? Because that's pretty amazing.
So, first of all, I just want to emphasise that this wasn't a one-man effort by any means, because if it wasn't for the support of all the people who got in contact with them afterwards, this would never have happened. So this wasn't just down to me by any means.
But he said it.
But yeah, okay. So the 2 markets were Old Spitalfields Market and Camden Market. So first I'll tell you about Old Spitalfields. It all started when one day I was at a vegan outreach in Brick Lane, and a friend of mine, Tara, turned up and said that she just had a bit of a altercation with a fur seller in Old Spitalfields Market, which wasn't that far from there. So I decided the next day, during my lunch break at college, I decided to go to Old Spitalfields Market, and I had a bit of an altercation with this same person. I filmed the whole encounter. He was saying some pretty horrible stuff. Like, he was saying, like, my family, I come from a family of slave traders, which he has absolutely nothing to go on. He was just making assumptions about me, basically trying to divert the attention away from himself.
Yeah.
And he kind of shot himself in the foot, because this footage went viral. It got shared hundreds of times. So then when I set up an online action asking everyone to get in contact with the market manager, to ask him to stop allowing the sale of fur at the market, hundreds of people got involved. People sending emails, people leaving reviews on their Facebook page.
Amazing.
It was absolutely massive. And then a few months down the line, we hadn't heard anything from them. I was beginning to lose a bit of hope. But then they announced that they were, as of, I think, the 1st of January this year, they were no longer going to allow the sale of fur at the market.
Amazing.
Bearing in mind that this is one of the oldest markets in London. I think it's been going since the 1860s. And as far as I'm aware, have been selling fur ever since they started. So
Wow.
for us to manage to take that down,
It's amazing.
it's absolutely amazing.
Such an achievement.
Since then, there's been another one, Camden Market. It's a similar kind of story, really. I heard that they were selling fur, so I decided to go there. I didn't have any altercations this time, but instead I took a lot of undercover photos. And then they announced a similar kind of thing. I got as many people as I could to message the market that they can. And I know there have been other campaigns in the past as well, so this isn't just a result of this campaign that I set up. But a few months back, they also announced that they were going to ban the sale of fur. Now, I have been back there since then, and unfortunately, there is still some fur there, which I'm really concerned about. I don't know why it's still there when they said they're not going to allow the sale of it anymore. I can only assume that they're just phasing it out, even though they did say they were going to have an outright ban as of a certain date. But, they're fully aware that they're not allowed to be selling it.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll start to see less and less fur at this market. We're going to keep an eye on it. Any updates, we'll let you know. And now there's a third campaign that's going on right now, hosted by a friend of mine, Emma. Actually, she's started it. I've been helping with a lot of the promoting online against. I can't even remember its name now. Portobello Market. That's it.
Yes.
That's actually the largest fur sellers in the UK.
I see it. All the
There have
time
been
now.
massive protests there in the past. And they've basically fallen on deaf ears. So if we can manage to stop them selling fur, that would be absolutely massive. That would be just incredible.
It'd be so good. Is your altercation with that man, is that on your YouTube page?
Yeah, that's on there now. It's under I think the name is Vegan Confronts Fur Trader.
Perfect. I'll put a link in the description. Anyway.
Thank you. There are quite a few negative comments from pro fur people on there. So if you could try and outnumber those comments, that would be much appreciated.
Exactly.
But it's funny, a lot of the comments are talking about how I'm never going to make a difference. But they wrote those comments after Old Spitalfields Market banned fur, so they haven't got a clue what they're
Haven't done
talking
their
about.
research.
Yeah, the fur trade is going down and
It
down,
really
but
is.
day by day. So, so if anyone watching this happens to be selling fur, I don't know why a fur trader would be watching a vegan YouTube channel,
You
but
never know.
if by any chance any of you are, stop selling it now whilst you have the chance to phase it out, because
Yeah, don't embarrass
eventually it's going to be it's going to be
obsolete.
banned, because in a few weeks there's a debate in Parliament as to whether or not to ban fur imports in this country. I think
Yes. 4th
fur-
of June, isn't it?
Yeah, 4th of June. Fur farming was banned in the UK back in the early 2000s, but you can still import it from elsewhere. And we're trying to put a stop to that as well. It's going to be debated in Parliament because a petition on the government site got over 100,000 signatures.
Yeah.
So
A protest is going to be taking place in London, isn't it? Outside
yeah,
Parliament?
yeah, I think it's an organisation called Open Cages. They're hosting it. There's guys. I think it's gathering on Parliament Square. I may be wrong. You have to check that out on the day of the debate. I think it's a Monday, which makes it a bit difficult, but I'm sure people will still be able to go anyway.
Exactly. I'll put a link in the description below
Yeah.
to that as well.
Yeah, please do.
So, obviously, these were pretty big moments in your sort of career as an animal activist, but what would you say is your biggest achievement to date?
Difficult to say. I mean, with Old Spitalfields and Camden, that's got to be up there, surely.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
that was pretty big. I think another huge success is really putting Romford on the map in terms of animal rights activism, because this time, say just over a year ago, there was no activism there at all, apart from the occasional slaughterhouse walk-in, because unfortunately we do have a slaughterhouse just outside Romford. But putting Romford on the map in terms of having weekly Earthings experiences there, having a Cube of Truth there as well, where numerous people go away having taken veganism seriously. We've even made it into the local press a couple of times.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably one of my biggest successes. Just getting all the local activists involved in, like I said earlier, people travelling to come to these events. That's a massive success as far as I'm
For sure.
concerned. And it's so easy to set up a local group. All you need is a good core group of even just 2 or 3 people. We've even done Earthlings with 2 people before, so. If you have device with footage, maybe signs, masks, it's easy to set it up. And we started out small. I said we got a decent turnout at our first event, but then after that we went through a phase of maybe having 2, 3, 4 people turning up, and I was starting to lose patience. But recently the turnout started increasing a lot.
Amazing.
Now often we'll get 8 or 9 people turn up every week, which is pretty incredible, to be
Exactly.
honest. So if you live in an area that doesn't have any activism, please set a group up, even if you just live in a small town, because it all counts.
sure.
We need to look beyond just big city activism, because that's
Exactly.
obviously massive, but we need to remember that there are people living in areas that aren't big cities, and we need to try and reach them as well.
Exactly. Don't let small numbers put you off. I mean, it sounds like you haven't let it discourage you when there's only been a couple of you. So
Yeah, it can get disheartening, of course.
Of course.
But just keep at it. The numbers will
It's worth
improve,
it.
and with every little interaction you have, you're planting seeds. Even if it doesn't seem like a particularly good conversation, even if the person you're speaking to is being actively combative to what you're saying,
Yeah.
they're still taking the time to stop and speak to you.
Exactly.
It's clearly having an impact on their minds.
or they wouldn't stop. So.
Yeah, of course. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So, what would you say to someone who might be watching this and is thinking, okay, this guy's really inspired me, I really want to get into activism, but I don't know where to start, what advice would you hand out?
First of all, look at what groups are out there. I'm sure you will find groups there. Hang on, sorry, we'll just sort out this technical issue again. There we go.
Thank you.
As I was saying, yeah. Just look at what groups are up there. And 3 websites I'd recommend going on is Anonymous for the Voiceless, which now has nearly 600 groups worldwide, including 6 in London, which I never thought I'd be so proud of my city, but there we go. It's getting better all the time. The Save Movement as well has hundreds of groups worldwide. Have a look on there. And the Earthlings Experience. Go on those 3 websites, see if there are any groups out there or that are near to you. If not, see if you can find a local vegans group, like on Facebook or something. See if you can get some people who will be interested in activism. Even if you find just 1 or 2 people, just set something up, you know. It obviously depends where you live. Here in the UK, I think, you know, we're fine to do peaceful demonstrations as long as it's on public land or just outside the business, like outside McDonald's, for example, where we do it on Friday nights. Just get a few people involved, get out there, spread the message, and you'll probably see a bit of a domino effect that once you start, more people start to turn up, then more people start to turn up. Sometimes you'll see people go past who are already vegan and then they'll get involved, which has happened with Havering Vegan Action quite a lot. So just, you know, don't be afraid as well. There are going to be times where you'll be frustrated. There will be people who don't want to listen. Just get out there and do what you can. Even, for example, look up some YouTubers, like, for example, James Aspey, Joey Carbstrong. Watch some of their interviews with other people, some of their debates, because you can learn a lot from them.
Exactly.
And that's where most of my outreach skills have come from, watching other YouTubers. Earthling Ed as well, we can't forget him. Yeah.
So my last question before wrapping this up, because it's now at half an hour.
I thought we'd gone for over an hour, so I think we've done pretty well.
That's not too bad, yeah. So lastly, what are your plans for the future in activism?
More cubes of truth. Just more and more of everything that's already going on, because I think we're really gathering momentum at the moment.
Yes.
More and more people are becoming vegan. More and more vegans are becoming activists. So basically just more of the same in new areas, provided I can find the time for it. I've got a few locations in mind. I'm not going to say them now just in case I don't manage to find the time for them, but it's, like I was saying, just more of the same really. I'm going to keep hosting the events in Romford, in Essex, in London. I'm going to keep trying to support as many events as I can. Yeah, more of the same, until every single animal on this planet has the rights that they inherently should have had anyway.
Exactly. So that's everything really. I will put links to Connor's YouTube channel.
It's not very good.
Don't say that, don't put yourself down. I'll put a link to his YouTube channel and a link to a couple of the things that he's mentioned, like a couple of the Facebook pages and things, relevant Facebook pages.
And the websites as well.
And the websites, etc. In the description below. Alright guys, if you've stayed this long, thank you. And go subscribe to Connor and follow what he does because he's amazing. Okay.
Thank you very much, and thank you.